this local usage, and also how it's received both locally and in the wider community. Thank you. I pass the floor to our Estonian delegate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, the southeastern dialect is quite different from the standard language. So there have been for a long time a tendency to use sort of dialectal names. In fact, we have even a discussion whether it is a dialect or a language. And the official position is that it is a dialect or regional variation, as it's called. We don't have only Southeast Estonia, but we have also some other regions that have sort of phonetically peculiar variations of their names. And as comes to natural features, we usually try to reflect the local usage of the name as much as possible. So people have reacted variously, but mostly they are accepting this. And these local forms can even be standardized in a literal standard language, I mean. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that reply. Do we have a representative of Sri Lanka? I don't think so. Which is a pity, because they had reflected in their report the use of both languages in the publication of their database, and I was just curious as to how that was fitting in with their cultural community to use both Ceylonese and Tamil in their systems, and whether it goes across into published maps as well as the database. So perhaps we'll have to ask them further on that. From the report from Australia, which I did not write, I am going to ask our Australian delegate if she could please give us some further indication on the discussion that she had in the report on linked data, which I think is a situation that all of us are going to become much more familiar with in the coming years, as place names are regarded as part of an overall data component for the benefit of the country. And how do we proceed in a linked data environment? So if I could pass the time to the delegate from Australia, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I must start by probably admitting that while the concept of linked data has probably been around for a little while, our committee's involvement is in its infancy. So this is still something that we're finding our feet on and finding our way through. There is a few links in our report for those that are interested. There is an Australian government linked data working group, and there has actually been a place names ontology that's been created for those who would like to take a look at that. Given that work and some of the previous work that our committee has reported on in previous sessions regarding feature catalogues and gazetteers, I think it's an opportune time for us to consider whether the content and the structure of the gazetteers that we are delivering adequately serve the needs of users, particularly in this relatively new space with regards to the linked data. I guess from an Australian perspective, in the coming years we'll be looking to build some stronger relationships with the groups that are both building and using those ontologies. We want to ensure that place names standardisation is respected and valued as an enabler of linked data, and with the obvious sort of outcomes that we're looking for, the improved economic and social outcomes across a broad range of data networks. I'm quite pleased to see some conversations on linked data happening at the UNGAGAN level. Looking forward to that. And if I may, Mr. Chair, I might take the opportunity on behalf of my colleague from Germany to draw attention to the linked data working group session that is on tomorrow morning, where I hope that we might be able to discuss some of these matters in a little bit more detail. Thank you.
Thank you for that explanation. And the last report that I would just like to mention a couple of situations dealing with was the report of Indonesia. As has been mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, Indonesia has recently undertaken an incredible program to verify and standardize the names of the islands in Indonesia. They have done this for 16,671 islands thus far, with another 852 to be completed this year. So I would like to congratulate them for that undertaking. It was quite an impressive one. And as my colleague from Indonesia explained the other day, they found 17 islands they didn't know they had during the process. And that's tremendous to have that clarified. Indonesia is also preparing and enacting government regulations regarding the granting and changing of geographical names. And I was wondering if I could invite the Indonesian delegation to just explain a little bit further on that particular concept. I pass the floor to Indonesia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Regarding the verification and standardization of the islands' names, at the beginning, there is the number 17,504 islands of Indonesia. But then we have to verify it. And then what the meaning of verification is, we would like to have the name and coordinate of each islands of Indonesia. And also we have to visit the islands in order to verify it. So up to the end of 2018, there is already, as Mr. Chairman mentioned, 16,671 islands. This year, in our report, at the beginning of when we write the report, the number is 852. But this morning, my staff mentioned to me that, well, maybe 917 islands. No, I'm not sure. Maybe by the program is progressing, we have more islands. So in total, we will have maybe more than, I'm not sure, maybe close to 18,000 islands. But what is important for us, we just not stop with the names and the coordinates, but we would like to put it in web-based GIS, and for each island, we would like to put all information that we have, all the thematic maps, demography, social, economy, whatever. But this is still a long process. And this process is not just involving our agency, but also the Ministry of Ocean and Fisheries of Indonesia, and then also coordinating Ministry of Maritime Affairs, and also the Indonesian Navies. So many Ministry of Interior also is there. So we hope that we can finish by the end of this year, because government asks the whole thing should be finished by the end of this year. And then the second thing is about the granting and naming of the geographical names. We would like to have a much higher regulation in Indonesia, so then we can standardize the naming. We have a good example. During the last tsunami in central Sulawesi, there is one phenomena that surprised us, which is liquefaction. We have earthquake, we have tsunami, we have landslide, and suddenly we have liquefaction on the land. Actually, if we go to the name of the local name of that area, already imply that that is the area of liquefaction, because in the local names, meaning sometimes is a moving black sand or something like that. But unfortunately then, people changing the names. and all